Okay, so hey there everyone. We will be optimizing the game. So we'll start by turning everything to the lowest setting, and then we'll turn them up one by one, see the difference in looks, and see the difference in performance. And I will be noting down the difference in performance to be made into a video.
Maybe Myers will fly a Rust Bucket B-17 Flying Fortress over Arasaka HQ. Oh man, that is insensitive. I am so.
Okay, so here we are. Let's start by, what is that? Okay. So here are the basics. We'll be putting crowd density in medium because this is a Ryzen 5 3600 XT and we do not want a CPU bottleneck here. In fact, I might even turn it to low because I'm streaming, although you wouldn't need to do that if you're not streaming. Next up, let's put this on the lowest settings, everything off. The only thing that we'll keep on is anisotropic filtering because there's no need to keep it off. The performance difference is barely anything. Let's begin. Okay, we are getting 60 FPS. That's it on the lowest settings. Well, this looks like a dev build, so let's start cranking things up. Let's start with the basic stuff that you want: depth of field, lens flare, and motion blur. We'll leave volumetric off. We'll also leave chromatic aberration off. We don't need those. So there is a slight performance difference with those on. Although it is up to personal preference, we will be keeping them on. And now the real stuff begins. Let me just get my notes. Okay. Let's start with the local shadow mesh quality. We'll turn from low to medium. Well, first, let's see our performances. So we're hovering around stand right here. We are hovering around 59 to 60 FPS. So let's turn up local shadow mesh quality to medium. Still hovering at around 59 to 60 FPS, although the frame times are slightly worse. Let's turn it up now to high. And still pretty much the same. The frame time seems to be margin of error. However, as soon as the people come in, the frame rate does drop. That is fine. So that makes no difference. So I recommend leaving this on high. Next, let's start with the local shadow quality. So right now we know that with low, running this at 60, we're hovering around there, 57 to 60 FPS. So let's turn local shadow quality to low. And still getting pretty consistent 57 to 60 FPS. Let's turn it to medium. Still an extremely consistent 57 to 60 FPS. with no noticeable change in the environment, to be fair, just basic shadows added. Now let's turn this from medium to high. Still no noticeable difference with a noticeable difference in quality of the visuals, but no noticeable difference in performance. So I recommend leaving the first two options on ultra, or by ultra I mean the highest it'll go. Next, let's continue with cascaded shadows range. We'll put this up with this, or no, I think it's better off if we just use this. So cascaded shadows range on medium, no noticeable performance difference. However, that might take effect if we move around, so let's try that. You'll see the pop-in is quite bad with this. Now let's turn it to medium. See, there's a difference there. Maybe a slight 1 to 2 FPS difference, but as long as the resolution's on low, the range doesn't seem to affect anything. Let's turn up to high. And now we do see quite a difference. I mean, relative to the other ones, we see quite a difference of 2 to 3 FPS, where before we were holding 60, now we're doing 57 to 59. And if you move around, that is significantly lower. By significantly, I mean relatively, because that is just an FPS. 1 frames per second lower, which is not enough and could be margin of error. 1 to 2 FPS lower than medium. So as long as your cascaded shadows resolution is on low, I recommend keeping this on medium or high. So now let's test with cascaded shadows resolution on medium. Not too much of a difference in performance from what we would consider to be the control. Yep, seems that the cases of people doubling their FPS after turning on cascaded shadows, turning off or turning down cascaded shadows, seems to have over-exaggerated things a bit. If we turn it to high, now only do we see a slight difference in performance. However, this is still quite acceptable. That being said, let's turn this up to... Let's turn up cascaded shadows range as well now. We'll do high and medium. That brought about a noticeable difference in performance. Let's try high and high. Again, no real difference in performance. Do keep in mind that performance is worse than it would be if that gunfight wasn't going on, so... Sounds like it. Okay. This game still looks pretty good even on low settings, which is quite surprising. Okay, so I mean, if they're alone, at least these settings do not make much of a difference. I will still be testing them later on because many people have reported that they make a huge difference. So perhaps they interact in some other way with other settings. Let's try distant shadows resolution. Let's get a new control. So let's try it with distant shadows resolution on high. Let it load in. And no noticeable difference. Yep, no difference in performance there. If there was, it was 1 to 2 FPS, barely any percentage points. Probably 5 to 6% difference. So we'll leave that be. I will definitely come back to these shadow ones later. For now, let's go on to volumetric fog resolution. So this is it on low. Let it load in. Alright, let's turn it up to medium. No noticeable difference whatsoever. And now let's turn it up again to high. Now we can see a slight difference in performance. And ultra. Oh yeah, that made a huge difference. That made a huge difference. That is a 5%. That is a 5 FPS to 5 to 10 FPS drop. So definitely recommend keeping volumetric fog resolution on high, unless of course you have like a 30 series card. Any 30 series card should handle this game fine on ultra at 1080p. Now let's go for volumetric volumetric cloud quality on medium. So let's get a new control. That is ultra, not low. Okay. So 57 to 60 FPS, around about there. Again, GPU is going underutilized at 80 to 90%. This shooting is going on forever. Let's see what it's like after we turn it up to medium. Not too much of a difference. About 1 to 2 FPS. And we seem to get clouds, so. So 1 to 2 FPS by turning it up to medium. Let's turn up to high. And a further 1 FPS decrease. I will be giving percentage points in the actual video, which will come with graphs, hopefully. This is just me making sure what's the most demanding, what works, what doesn't. So here we see not that much of a difference, but there was a 3 to 4 FPS decrease from 60 FPS when turning off volumetric cloud quality. Let's take it to high. Negligible difference between high and ultra. Now looking up, also not much of a difference between medium and ultra. So I'd say if performance is really tight, turn it to medium, otherwise keep it at ultra. Next we have max dynamic details, decals. So that's stuff like stickers on people, on surfaces. It's basically a layered texture on a texture. So let's take the control for this. Now let's turn it up to medium, see if that makes much of a difference. I suspect turning it to high will make a noticeable difference, as it usually does in most games. Let's see. No, not much of a difference. In fact, it looks like performance has improved, which is probably not because of the actual setting, probably because the GPU is being utilized properly. Next up, let's turn it up to high. Performance improves further, slight decrease. Very fascinating. So this setting seems to impact how much of the GPU is utilized, which is very interesting because the GPU is underutilized when this is off or on low. And so high was basically when we saw our first real performance hit with this setting. Going to medium seemed to be a performance increase. Let's go from high to ultra. And yet again, we have the curious case of there being no difference because of the increased utilization on the GPU. Yep, basically no difference. Maybe 1 to 2 FPS here and there. So if you're really tight on performance, leave it on medium. Do not go to low whatsoever, or keep it on ultra. Next, this one is going to be one of the biggest ones. Screen space reflections quality. Let's put that to low. We know that the control is around 59 to 65 FPS, so we don't have to worry about that now. Immediately we see dips, substantial dips, so this one is quite demanding, as I suspected it would be. Yep. Let's turn it down to, turn it up to medium. Further dips, we are now not maintaining 60 back in the alleyway. However, during movement, it's barely noticeable, the performance difference. This is all margin of error stuff, especially considering the dynamic gameplay, the dynamic scene that's here right now. So let's turn it up to high. not a substantial decrease. I would probably recommend keeping it on this, seeing as though it does make quite a bit of a difference in the scene detail.
We can't escape!
So let's turn it up to Ultra. Significant decrease in performance, significant. I would not recommend keeping this on Ultra at any cost. Especially because there isn't much of a difference. So stay away from Ultra on this one. Keep this one on high. Let's try Psycho just for the fun of it. And we are down to 41 FPS. Ladies and gentlemen, this is as bad as ray tracing, so what's the point? Yeah, no, this is not acceptable. Stay far away from Psycho. Only use Ultra if you have a 30 series card, and otherwise I'd recommend high. Subsurface scattering quality, probably not going to make much of a difference. Let's get a new control. $58 to $61. Let's say around 60 FPS average. Let's turn this up to, where is it? Medium. And as predicted, no noticeable difference. Let's turn this up to high. And now there is a slight difference. However, I do not believe that is because of the setting that we changed. It just does not make sense for it to affect the scene in any way. So I'd recommend keeping this on high. Next, let's move on to ambient occlusion. This one is going to make the biggest difference in terms of visuals. Slightly worse performance with ambient occlusion turned on. Obviously that is expected, and I highly recommend turning this on in any modern game. Alright, let's move on to medium settings. One or two FPS worse, practically the same. I think I'm going to be recommending medium for this one. Let's go to high. Slight difference. You don't really notice much in terms of visual quality. However, let me just make sure of that. So there is a slight difference, and honestly, it is pretty noticeable. So I do recommend keeping this on high, unless you really have to claw back some performance, in which case turn it down to medium. But definitely otherwise keep it on high. Next up, we have color precision. Always keep this on high. There's no reason not to. there isn't really much of a performance difference. As you can see, not much of a performance difference at all, and definitely just keep it on high. Next up, let's go to mirror quality. Starting on low, we have the control. Going to medium. So mirror quality, not really much of a difference there. Let's turn out to high. Again, not much of a difference at all. There's definitely headroom here, so I would recommend keeping this on high. And let's move to level of detail medium. A 1 to 2 FPS, 3 FPS difference, not much. Quite possibly due to me live streaming and recording at the same time. Let's move to high. I suspect this will bring quite a big performance decrease. No, surprisingly tame. I would, if you have a decent modern CPU, I would recommend keeping this on high. So let's go through everything again. Except shadows, we won't be touching that right now. Volumetric fog resolution, keep that on high. Volumetric fog quality, cloud quality, you can keep that on ultra. Max dynamic decals, not much of a difference, but I still would recommend high. Screen space reflections quality, we had high as recommended. Ultra and psycho are just too much. Subsurface scattering quality can be left on high. Ambient occlusion on high because you pretty much need it. Color precision on high. Mirror quality on high, and level of detail on high. So let's see what sort of difference that brings. And now the FPS is absolutely tanked. Although I'm pretty sure we won't be getting back up to 60 like this. Now from here, let's see how we can save. So cloud quality can go down to high, fog resolution leave that on high, max dynamic details, that's fine. You can turn down screen space reflections quality to medium. Subsurface quality can be left on high. Ambient occlusion can be turned down to medium for some more performance. I will be trying that out. We'll be turning down mirror quality just in case, although right now that's not really necessary. I would leave this on high because there aren't that many mirrors. So we've already gained a couple FPS. Although we're still not doing too great. So let's turn down max dynamic details, see if that makes much of a difference. Nope, not much of a difference at all there. So on high. It's around a 2 FPS hit, max dynamic decals. Keep that on medium. Volumetric cloud quality, keep that on high. Let's try turning this down to medium. Yeah, that has helped significantly. So keep volumetric fog quality on medium. Let's check out volumetric cloud quality as well. Not much of a difference there. I'd leave that how it was on high. Next, let's try to bring down subsurface scattering, see if that makes a difference. Nope, barely any difference there. I would leave this on high. Leaving ambient occlusion on medium is the best balanced way to do it, but if you do want to go down to low, there isn't that much of a performance increase. It's really not worth it. So let's keep that as it was on medium. And let's try turning down level of BTR to medium. And that has not helped one bit because this is a GPU bottleneck more than anything. So let's turn back up to high, make sure it hasn't helped. Yep, no, barely any difference. Okay, so now where do we go from here? Well, let's first start with seeing if contact shadows makes a difference. Not too much of a difference. I'd say leaving contact shadows on is the best way to do things. Now let's see if improved facial lighting geometry makes a difference. Again, not too much of a difference. Another FPS maybe. Unless you're desperate, do not recommend turning that off. So this is what we ended up with. Now let's start tweaking the shadows, which I'm sure will make a huge difference. Let's start with the shadows on as high as they go and then turn them down one by one. Okay. Nope, sorry, that was volumetric fog resolution. Definitely keeping that on medium. Alright. So overall, the shadows did not make too much of a difference. Four to 5 FPS, that is 10 to 11% difference. So we can definitely turn things down. Let's start with local shadow mesh quality. Not much of a difference. I'd recommend leaving that on the highest setting. Let's turn down local shadow quality now. a decent difference. Now let's see what happens if we turn them down together. Barely any difference. I'd recommend keeping this on high. Let's turn down local shadow quality further to low. I would not recommend going this low with local shadow quality at all. Not too much of a difference either, so let's turn it back up. I'd keep that on medium. Now let's try cascaded shadows range. Down to medium. That is a decent performance uplift, getting us into the low 50s, and not too much of difference in terms of visuals. Let's turn that down to low. That is quite a nice bump in performance, and I don't notice too much of difference at all. So I definitely keep this around about low or medium. Next up, let's move to cascaded shadows resolution. We saw it on high. Let's do it on medium. Now this one I do notice a difference on, for example, the car in the top right there. You can see it in the distance. It looks significantly worse, and it does not make too much of a difference either. So I would recommend leaving this. Well, let's try low first. That is a nice bump, but it's not enough to justify low. However, there's barely any difference between medium and low. So if you don't notice the difference between high and medium, then I definitely just recommend keeping it. Oh wait. So when cascaded shadow resolution is low, there isn't much of a difference between this. So I'd recommend putting both of these on medium and leaving it like that. As you can see, that is quite a nice bump in performance. Next up, let's try distant shadows resolution. Put that to low. And basically no difference. Recommend leaving that on high. So here we have it, the so-called optimized settings, without ray tracing, of course. Again, you could put this on medium. I don't see a large difference in performance, nor do I see a large difference in quality of anything, so that is up to you. Now let's try DLSS with this. First with quality. Significant bump in performance, and visual quality, it looks a lot better. It's resolving details farther away, which I could not see on native. Now let's turn it down to balanced. Still better than native, and we are getting closer to 60. Now turning this to performance, I would not recommend this whatsoever. Still surprisingly, now it looks like the native image, which is pretty impressive. But I personally would recommend keeping this on quality. Do note this is quite a demanding scene right here, so probably gonna get better FPS elsewhere with these settings, and the game does look very good. Do you note the stuttering slash tiny drops are because the GPU is being slightly bottlenecked here by the CPU due to me live streaming as well.
You want trouble?
So here are again the recommended settings, the optimized settings: local shadow mesh quality on high, local shadow quality medium, cascaded shadows range on medium, medium, high, medium, high, medium, medium, high, medium, high, 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 high. So most of it is left as high as possible. It's just the ones that have the big sliders are on medium. You could try turning this up to high. I don't imagine it make too much of a difference. Yeah, so definitely recommend high for screen space reflections. Now, this is not indicative of real-world performance because I'm definitely streaming and that is definitely causing a CPU bottleneck. This is just to know what would be the optimal settings. And these are the optimal settings. With DLSS on quality, turning DLSS off will net you below 60 FPS, or it won't lock it at 60. So now let's turn DLSS off. Did not mean to do that. Let's turn DLSS off. See what we get. Around 48, 47. Alright. Let's turn on ray tracing. See how that does it. We'll start with the biggest difference maker, which is ray trace reflections. And sub 30 FPS. Now here, I am curious about one thing, and that is the reflection quality. I wanted to see if we could turn down, what is that? That is odd. Anyway, I wonder if that has to do with this being on medium. Like, if I do so high, will it render in real time? No. That is interesting. Let's see how we can fix that, because that is not playable. Cascaded shadows range, is this it? Nope. Let's see. Medium resolution, that will make a difference. Nothing here. Anyway, let's test out reflections first. So if I turn off screen space reflections completely, let me try to get a person in a reflection. Okay. Let's see if we turn on high. Not too much of a difference whatsoever. Let's see these guys in the reflection. Okay. So let's turn it off, see if they're still there, see if they're still moving. Yes, they are. Everything is pretty clearly visible as well. So if you're turning on ray trace reflections, definitely remember to turn off screen space reflections. I suspect if we now use ray trace shadows, we could also be able to turn off these settings. Let's find out, however. So I'll stand here. That. Okay. Stand right here. Let's turn shadows all the way down. Okay. So that's what it looks like with shadows turned all the way down. Now let's turn it back up. Looks slightly better. Now let's turn all of it down completely and then turn on ray trace shadows. That looks better. So basically, if you have ray trace reflections on, turn off screen space reflections, and if you have ray trace shadows on, turn off these shadows. I believe people are also rendered in these shadows, so that should not be too much of an issue. Let me just check. Yeah. So I'd recommend having this on low anyway, just in case there's something that you miss out on.
For trouble, asshole?
Otherwise, turn it off. All down. Next, let's have a look at ray trace lighting. So that tanks FPS, let's try to bring it back up. So when it's on medium, we can turn off ambient occlusion, it's not needed. We can probably turn off this as well because of the ray trace reflections, and we can't really do much other than that. So let's see. Slight improvement. Would not, however, recommend them this way. So let's turn off ray trace shadows. Barely any improvement. Let's keep it on. You can probably turn off contact shadows as well. Don't think we'll be needing that. Let's see.
Fuck! Get out of my sight!
Yeah, no, contact shadows are not necessary when ray trace shadows and lighting's on. But for now, let's just keep ray trace lighting off. Oop. Yep. Turn on the ambient occlusion as well.
Looking for trouble, asshole?
Okay. Now let's see what sort of difference DLSS makes. So for ray tracing, reflections and shadows are pretty much the things that make the biggest difference here. And ray trace lighting is pretty well faked with rasterization in this game anyway. so I don't think it's that much of a problem. Now let's turn on DLSS. Let's start from performance. Getting around 40 to 43 FPS on performance DLSS, although GPU utilization is dog shit. It is 80%. Let's turn it up to balanced. And performance improves because utilization improves. Very interesting. Only improves by like an FPS of 3 though. Let's turn it up to quality. And we basically see worse performance than even with balanced. I'm sorry, than with performance. Or pretty much the same as performance. So definitely recommend keeping this unbalanced. And finally we have the optimized settings for ray tracing with just reflections and shadows. You might want to turn this up to medium because your own character is not reflected in mirrors. So this is it. So in a demanding scene like this, in the middle of night city with many lights and many reflective surfaces, expect this sort of FPS. So I'm pretty sure the shadows thing can be fixed with the details.
Gonna smoke you right out.
Nope, never mind. Recommend keeping that on medium. Does not make too much of a difference. Not sure why it's doing this, so very odd. Perhaps this is a quirk of the ray trace shadows. No, it is worse now. No idea what's causing that. Probably just hard set. Shadows. Turn that back on. This game does look really good. Now utilization is pretty bad, the optimization is dismal, but this is as playable as it gets. With ray tracing anyway. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe. I will probably be uploading an actual video of this. Maybe not. This was enough, and I'm not really confident in the game to give proper results right now, just because of how dynamic and unoptimized, quite frankly, it is, because GPU utilization very rarely hit anywhere above 95%. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Remember to subscribe. Goodbye.